This is Tony Jeffries and you're watching Sporting Icons.
Now, most people who are subscribed to this channel, you know boxing, okay? To the point where Canelo Alvarez, when he announces that he's going to take on Dmitry Bivol, a lot of people felt the same way that I did of, are you sure about this? This is no gimme. This is no cherry pick. It really isn't. This is not a fight that Canelo Alvarez is definitely going to win. This is high risk. This is a weight class that Canelo Alvarez, we know, doesn't really belong in at this point in his career. Yes, of course, he has defeated Kovalev at that one before, but he didn't look great, and that was against an aging Kovalev. You can see that Canelo Alvarez looks very good at super middleweight and middleweight, okay? Not light heavyweight. Or at least so far. I mean, in time, maybe he'll adjust to it. So when he announced he'd taken on Bivol, we understood how good Bivol actually is. We knew that it was a tough ask. But of course, most people would favour Canelo Alvarez. Listen, Canelo Alvarez can fight Tyson Fury. And there'll be a very high percentage of people picking Canelo Alvarez to win. Because people are not accustomed to Canelo Alvarez looking bad in any of his fights. They're not accustomed to him losing. They're not accustomed to anything negative about Canelo Alvarez. Okay? So him taking on Bivol, of course, he's always going to be the favourite for sure. But while it's not happening here on my post-fight review video, it's happening across social media, Twitter to be precise. And yeah, of course, we should know better when it comes to Twitter. But of course, when I'm seeing comments from people saying things like, I always knew Canelo Alvarez is overrated. Well, this definitely means that X fighter and Y a fighter is a pound for pound fighter above Canelo Alvarez. This is why Canelo Alvarez is not pound for pound number one. And just adjusting people above Canelo Alvarez. Imagine what Charlo or Benavidez would have done to Canelo. It's these kind of comments. And I'm thinking, are these people just hating on Canelo? Listen, nobody has to like Canelo. Of course, he's got that history with the PED situation, and I understand that point. But when it comes to people trying to justify the fact that Charlo would have defeated him or Benavidez would have defeated him, why? Because Bivol did. I'm telling you that Charlo would not get out of 4 or 5 rounds with Bivol. He wouldn't. Benavidez, he'd stand more of a chance, but again, that's due to the dimensions and the fact that he's a very good boxer. He's a good fighter in that as well, Benavidez. But Benavidez is not testing himself at light heavyweight, even though he should, because he's too big for super middleweight. Charlo is not testing himself. He's fighting Selecki coming up. Come on. Benavidez is fighting David Lemieux coming up. These guys are not in fighting each other. And yet you want to say how Canelo should be fighting one of these guys instead of Bivol. Really? If Canelo Alvarez had fought Charlo and defeated him, oh well, he was a weight bully. Oh well, he's avoiding Benavidez. If he fights Benavidez, defeats Benavidez, oh well, he's avoiding Charlo. If he fights both of them, oh well, he's avoiding L Space Jr. is a name that I've seen popped up for some strange reason. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is that Canelo fights. It seems that he's going to get hate. And it seems to be from a section of, well, quite clearly, PBC fanboys. Because they don't know European fighters, okay? If they're not American, then they don't know them. If they're not on the PBC platform, then they don't really know them. So everybody else is a bum. Honestly, I mean, I would imagine that Canelo Alvarez would defeat Charlo. He would defeat Benavidez. He would defeat L Space Jr. And of course he'd defeat him. Then what? Oh, well, he's avoiding Gervonta Tank Davis. He's avoiding Rigondeaux. This is the kind of thing that people will go on. When none of these fighters that you seem to think Canelo Alvarez should be fighting are doing anything themselves. What are they doing? They're not doing anything. What have they done to justify a fight with Canelo Alvarez? Canelo Alvarez is a surefire Hall of Famer. The day he retires is the day he goes into the Hall of Fame. We know that. I'm not fanboying for him, not at all. He's just a phenomenal fighter. He is. His resume is outstanding. It's phenomenal. It really is. But some people just have this narrative about Canelo Alvarez because he's not fighting PBC fighters. In fact, he was avoiding Caleb Plant not so long ago. He beat him. Oh, well, Caleb Plant is a bum. I mean, you can never win. Honestly, you could never ever win. Listen, you can't teach stupid, okay? People are just stupid. That's just how they are. And unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of them who claim to be boxing fans. They're not boxing fans, they're just PBC fans. Why? Because they don't know who Bivol is? Why? Because they're not boxing fans. Because Bivol is not a PBC fighter, that's why. If he was a PBC fighter, trust me, they'd have been calling for this fight a long time ago. There would have been. But there's nothing wrong with Canelo Alvarez coming up short against Bivol. There were certainly criticisms that we could throw at Canelo, like his work rate wasn't as high as what it would normally be. Is that because he was too heavy? Possibly. But it could also be because Bivol is very, very good. He had a game plan and he wasn't diverting from it. He wasn't going to go in there and start gunslinging with Canelo Alvarez. He would pot shot him. He was big. He was strong. Fantastic jab. He would throw combinations and he'd get out of range. He knew and understood his range. His footwork was exceptional. He was a perfect fighting machine against Canelo Alvarez. He understood what he had to do against a smaller fighter. Yes, Canelo Alvarez, he was on the on the light heavyweight limit, but he's not a light heavyweight. We know that. I mean, look at the size of him. And it's pretty evident in the ring last night when Bivol was towering above him. He looked gigantic. He looked like a heavyweight next to Canelo Alvarez. But Canelo Alvarez went the distance with him. He took some pretty big shots, and he landed some pretty big shots as well. And for people to talk about how this justifies how he's not pound for pound number one is ridiculous. Really, you want to put Gervonta Davis above him, you want to put Errol Spence Jr. above him, you want to put this person up. Really, what have they done? So what, he took a loss. But what about all the wins that he does have? They're far, far, far more than your favourite fighters. They are. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it all. You drop me yours, of course. Do you think Canelo Alvarez can get redemption in the rematch? A few adjustments here and there. Maybe be a bit more aggressive. Because again, going by the judges' scorecards, all three of them had 115, 113 in favour of Bivol. Which meant that had Canelo Alvarez had won round number 12, for example, the fight would have been a draw. So maybe just a bit more pressure, a bit more aggression, a bit more work rate. Maybe he'd have got the draw or even won the fight. But, I mean, for me, I had Bivol winning by a bigger margin than that. But still. The rematch is set to be one of the biggest fights of the year. Guarantee it. Drop your thoughts below, click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you on the next video.